Welcome to the Body Bag Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Broke Rider Dave. With me is Chris Thomas.
What's up, everyone?
And today we took our old top 10 and we decided to reformat them a little bit. Instead of it just being one of our individual lists, this is something we're going to build together. Teamwork. And we're going to do it on the podcast using something I created calling Body Bag Math. And we're going to use that math to figure out the 10 most important horror movies of all time.
The definitive list, like, forget any other lists you may have seen by any so-called experts.
This is the list right here, right now. We're going to create it.
What are my qualifications to announce what are our qualification? We watch movies. That's our qualification.
We love horror movies. We breathe it, we bleed it, we love it. So we know it. Not really, but
I was gonna say, what if this was the instance where I decided to say, actually, in all this, I actually hate horror movies.
Yeah.
In all honesty,
Yeah. In all honesty, guys, just hate horror movies.
It's a facade.
Yeah, this has been a giant joke the entire time.
Yeah, especially within the last 2 years, where not only do we do our movie reviews and our guest reviews with the movies, stuff like that, but ever since I got the Shudder thing, I've been putting out those Shudder shout-outs. I've been seeing a good amount of horror movies.
We watch a lot of horror. Yeah.
Thank you, Daddy Shudder, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, Shudder, for constantly having fresh new horror movies out there
at such a reasonable price.
Yeah, was it $5.99 a month?
Yes, that's $5.99 a month for Shudder, or you can pay for the whole
less
year.
than a foot long at Subway. Okay, you can get Shudder for a month. So I suggest you go check it out if you don't already have the service. By the way, we're still not sponsored by them. These are just our personal opinions about the app.
If our upcoming guests have taught us anything, anybody could be listening.
Exactly.
There's a Shudder exec right now. Do the right thing.
Yeah. Reach out to us and be like, hey, we want to sponsor this podcast because it'll be good business for Shudder.
Even the bad movies on there are entertaining.
Yes. So, to get back to what we're doing today.
Oh, yeah.
We're finding the most important horror movies of all time. And to do that, I have three sections for us to score. The impact that it's had on horror, the legacy of the movie, how well it's known today, and the quality of the movie. Is it something rewatchable, or is it something you just watch one?
So,
and to stick with Body Bag, each of those three things we're going to rate
now
1 through 10, and then I'm going to add all the scores and put them up, and that'll be the perfect score would be 30 points.
Now,
because we've been using a 30-point scale. So.
How do we determine what movies are I guess they would just have to be movies that we know about.
Yeah. Movies that we know, that we feel are the most important movies to horror.
Oh, and I gave you a stipulation because, like, if we had you don't want to have like 4 Alfred Hitchcock movies and 3 John Carpenter movies. You know what I mean? I figured that it would just spread it around a little bit in terms of, I just did it to kind of spice things up a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, on the list, I don't have any sequels or anything because when it comes to something that's it's a first original movie that makes that impact. So I don't know of any sequels that I would sit there and say is one of the most important horror movies of all time. Unless you could think of one.
Well, can I think of one of the most important horror movies of all time?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, probably Jaws.
You think Jaws? Okay.
When I think of movies that have been parodied, because we're talking about legacy, that have been parodied, have been paid homage to, it scared an entire generation to not go to the beach.
It really did.
And according to Bravo, if you want to go by anything, that whole Bravo's Top 10 thing that I used to listen to back in the day said that it was the definitive number one. Now, do I think it's the all-time number one? I don't know. That's going to be up for discussion and debate, but I do think it deserves a spot on the list.
Okay, so let's start off with Jaws. I do think it had a definite impact on horror because after Jaws, you started seeing a lot more horror movies that had sharks or just horror movies taking place out in water.
It paved the way for movies like Sharknado.
Yeah. Also paved the way for movies like
Sharknado
Anaconda. 2. Yeah. Piranha.
Sharknado 3.
The Meg.
I don't know how many there are.
I think there's 7 Sharknadoes.
Well, I'm not going to go through the rest of them.
No. So I think for impact for me, I think Jaws, I think would be a 7.
7 out of
10.
Oh, because we're adding these up for a scale of 30.
Yeah.
So for legacy,
what would you give it for impact?
For impact?
Yeah.
Like I said, scared an entire generation of getting to not going to the beach. it definitely had an impact on, like you said, that's gonna be an 8 for me.
An 8, and I said 7, so we're gonna go 7.5.
Yeah.
All right, and now Legacy.
That one for me, I would say, is about a 9. I mean, even now, you think of movies that have the stamp of classic on it.
Yeah, it does have classic, but I think it's starting to fade away a little bit. Because outside of Sharknado nowadays, you don't get many movies like it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see that Legacy's starting to fade.
Well, you just wait. The way they reboot and franchise, it's just a matter of time before Jaws gets the Michael Myers treatment or the Leatherface treatment.
I don't know, because people kind of piss all over movies like Meg and Sharknado. So
well, I'm just saying they'll do it just because of the namesake.
I don't think Jaws is going to get a remake.
Because they know better than to touch a classic that important.
I don't know. Once again, I'm probably going to go 7. So that would put Legacy for this one at 8.
Yeah.
All right. Quality of the movie. I really like how it was more kind of like the essence of the shark.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't rely on the actual shark being in the movie too much. It was more building up the suspense of the shark attack.
I should have added this when we were talking about the when you were saying that it's kind of faded away. Like I was gonna bring up the music, the quality, that classic score.
That classic score.
So maybe people, even if you don't know the Jaws, maybe where it's from, you will recognize that dum dum. I mean, when you hear that, you think Jaws, and people who haven't even seen Jaws probably know Jaws just because of that score.
Yeah.
So the sound quality is, the actual shark, the quality that, considering, I mean, it's now well known amongst people who talk about horror that it was a shit show trying to get that shark running.
And that's why it didn't get as much screen time.
But they were able to work with a limited use of the shark.
And I think that actually worked in the favor of this movie.
So when I think quality, and also when it comes to the story, even the scenes that don't have the shark in it are entertaining. The whole scene with Richard Dreyfuss and Quint, and they're all on the boat, and they're just like drinking and just like we're talking scars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It like you're like, oh, these are just like, is like hanging out with the guys. So even the non-entertaining part, and some parts probably a little bit more entertaining than the actual shark part.
Yeah.
So if I were to give it a quality, just because it's hard for me to give a perfect 10, I'm giving it another 9.
I'm right there with you with 9. All right. So Jaws, for its 3 scores, got a 7.5, an 8, and a 9.
It's going to be a tough contender.
Yes, it is. And I'm going to go second movie, Night of the Living Dead.
I knew that this was going to crop up at some point.
Yes. Because I do think it had a big impact on the horror genre. It created the entire zombie genre of movies.
Ghouls.
They weren't even zombies yet. Yeah, ghouls.
And it wasn't because of a virus. It was because of Venus, space Venus dust stuff.
See, impact, I think I'd have to put it at 9.
Go on. Okay.
Yeah. It created a whole subgenre that's still massively popular. And I also think you can't tell the history of horror without talking about the Night of the Living Dead.
I'm with you with the 9 because I mean when we check it out nowadays, we see also how important it was in terms of whenever you hear Night of the Living Dead, you also hear about the fact that it was the first black protagonist in a horror movie that wasn't a stereotype or the bad guy. And at a time where I believe during the shooting, I want to say was when Martin Luther King died. I do believe, yeah. And I think it was racial tensions were high in our country, so for them to take that risk, yeah. I think it was in noir, the horror noir, that the history of black entertainment and horror. I think they said when they heard the news, like they realized, oh, this is an important thing or an important movie. Yeah, because when they cast him, he said he didn't care about his race. He was just the best actor for the part. All right, so we both say 9. Sense, yeah. We both say 9, I guess. Yeah, legacy. It has a great legacy. That I believe has only garnered more respect over time. Yeah. So once again, I'm probably at like an 8 or a 9 with legacy. I think the impact was a little bit more important than its legacy. I'm saying 8. Yeah, I'll go 8 with you on that. Because people, I mean, it always makes top 10s. Yeah. It always, I mean, everybody knows it's important. I say the impact is stronger, but the legacy is appreciated. Yes.
And now for quality, I think it is a quality movie, but I do think the whole Venus thing, the story kind of hurts the quality of this.
Well, I mean, at the time, I mean, zombies then are different than we know them now.
No,
So
yeah,
they just needed an excuse to have the dead come to life.
yeah,
And considering what the movie started out as a sci-fi alien movie,
yeah, and turned into this.
and
So
then it eventually, over many rewrites, turned into this. So
yeah,
that was just like remnants of
well,
probably that old project.
but on lists like that, we're talking about like the most important horror movies. We're gonna have a lot of good horror movies.
Hmm.
So you gotta nitpick little things. Otherwise, quality is just gonna be like nines and tens on the board. Great on like a harsher scale for these ones.
Did I have any criticism? I'm trying to think of back when we did our review. Did I have any real criticisms about it?
I don't know if it was Chris. It was just like how different the zombies were. Some were like dumb and slow. Other ones were using tools.
Yeah, because I was like, yeah, they're like they had some kind of limited intelligence.
Yeah,
So quality, I don't know. It's hard for me to kind of judge black because this was the black and white was a artistic choice.
yeah.
Well, either that or a budget choice.
But
Actually, I
we
think
watched it once. Would you go out of your way to rewatch it after watching it the first time?
it's not on my must see every year. So
Yeah, that's fine.
respectfully, I mean, just for that fact, all right, that's gonna help me kind of gauge that number
Yeah,
for the quality.
yeah.
Without
Would
any
you go out of your way to rewatch it? Something
on
I put in there too. Yeah,
on a scale of 1 to 10, going out of my way to rewatch it would probably be about a 6.
yeah. I agree with you on that one. So
Um, it's one
we're
that I would watch maybe one like if I'm flipping through channels and it's on, I'll be like, all right,
yeah. But I wouldn't purposely go out of my way to
yeah.
watch it unless I had to. For
Or unless I wanted to critique it again and try to.
yeah,
So, I mean,
see
it's
if
all.
I matured it all as a movie watcher
I
or
like the
critic.
movie as an analytical piece
Yes.
to kind of watch it and kind of appreciate it in terms of as a piece of cinematic history.
986, not bad. On to another one.
So ones that I think, well, when you had told me about us doing this, I was trying to think of not just the obvious ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I went super obvious. I'm like, there's a reason these are obvious, you know?
yes, there's some of them, yes, but I was trying to, I always try to throw a little bit of love to,
Yeah.
some others in terms of, because we're doing impact, legacy, and quality.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and this might not even make the list, but I'd like to see where we would stand on it.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw in the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, that was going to be the one I picked next too. This is actually, I think, a pretty important film for the found footage. It impacted that whole found footage subgenre.
Yes,
Because there were
and
some found footages behind it, but once this movie came out, it went to a completely different level.
I wish I was old enough to appreciate the marketing behind it. I was a little kid when that movie came out.
Yeah, with a movie with like almost no budget, the
Was that
marketing that they did for this was amazing.
was that also 99 or 98?
99, I believe.
So I would have been depending on I'd have been like 8.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't able to appreciate this thing called the Blair Witch. I wish I was a teenager when that movie came out.
I think I saw it a couple years after it came out, but still, I was still young enough to be under the notion thinking it was an actual true story type snuff film. And only having $60,000
Mhm.
budget and making almost 250 million, that's something right there. That,
So for impact, I'm certainly not going to put it as impactful as Night of the Living Dead, but I think it had about the same kind of impact as Jaws did at the
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Of terms of people being like freaked out thinking this was a real thing. It scared people into thinking of that this Blair Witch was real, and Jaws made people scared that there were,
Real story. Yeah.
great white sharks everywhere in the water. Well, I mean there are, but
Yes. I'd probably go 8 on impact.
so we agree on 8.
Yeah. Now, legacy of this movie.
I think that's actually diminished over time.
I'd have to agree with you a little bit.
There are more and more people, like it was more appreciated then, but more and more people nowadays say that they hate the characters, that the characters were like annoying. Oh, I hate the shaky cam.
See, I think you got people who don't understand what they're trying to do with found footage because you don't want perfection like found footage movies. You want to find the beauty in the imperfections of it. But yeah, now you got people like combing through it with a magnifying glass, picking it apart. kind of brought it down. And plus, the sequel is hot dog shit.
And then later on down the line, Paranormal Activity would become the definitive like found footage type movie as time went on.
Yeah.
So the fact that the legacy, unless you're like super into horror, has diminished over time. So
I'm gonna have to go with 5.
I'm gonna go 6. I'll say it's unfortunate that that's the legacy, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It wouldn't have been that if I had any say, but I just,
looking at it through a scope of it all for just where it lands. And quality of the movie.
For found footage, I mean, it's pretty much found footage. I mean, it's kind of hard to judge quality because when you watch a found footage movie, you do know that you're gonna have your shaky cam, you're gonna be having these weird cuts and blah blah blah. So
yeah. Also, there's found footages that you can rewatch, but I feel like Blair Witch is a one and done movie.
I don't know. I don't mind. I don't mind that being like a movie that I have like in the background. So mine might be a little bit higher than yours.
Yeah, because I feel like it was just you watch it once, it's really good, but if you keep going back, it loses a lot of its luster time and time again. Like, I think if you're going to rewatch it, you need a couple of years apart at least.
So what would you put it?
I'm once again at a 5 with it.
It has been a couple of years.
Since I mean, it has been a few years since I watched it, but yeah.
Just given that fact, probably 6, I guess.
Like, we're not saying that this movie is bad at all. It's a great movie. It's just on the scale of the movies we're doing, have to be more harsher than we usually would be.
Especially if you are in the camp that the characters are annoying, then you wouldn't want to have to keep subjecting yourself to it.
Yeah. I didn't find the characters annoying.
I mean, they had their moments. I mean, it felt natural, but
I think that's the beauty of it, is it was natural reaction.
Because some people are like, man, they looking like they can't even act. I was like, well, yeah, they're not supposed to be actors in this found footage thing.
They're reacting to things. Like, I think, what was the girl's name? Heather? She was genuinely scared that they were taking her out to the woods to make a stuff film, so.
Mm-hmm. So that's a 5.5, I guess?
Yeah. So an 8, 5.5, 5.5. Which, I mean, isn't bad. I'm going to go with Nosferatu.
Yeah, we kind of have to talk about that one. I knew it was
eventually going to come up because it's like the grandfather of horror movies. Well, at this time, great grandfather.
I mean, despite the fact that we both, would be kind of bored. I mean, it's a movie that we will kiss the ring and say yes, it is the godfather of like vampire and horror movies. But in terms of
I understand it was made in 1922, but
yes, I felt bad for saying I was bored, but it's like, look, man, I can't help it. I know that it's a good movie, but I can't help it.
So I guess starting out with quality, I'd put it maybe at like 4.
I'll put it at a 5 because I would watch it again to try to critique it. It's actually one of those that I put with the other one where I would like go to it and then try to critique it differently each time. So quality for me would be 5.
Yeah, it's not something you're going to watch for entertainment, but you'll go back to watch to critique it. Kind of along the same lines of Night of the Living Dead and also like, was it Casablanca?
Yeah, Citizen Kane.
And those type of movies. Like, you're not going to watch them for enjoyment.
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen Citizen Kane, so I don't know.
I've seen Citizen Kane, but I haven't seen Casablanca.
Gone with the Wind.
Right. So Impact, it has kind of gave birth to horror.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the impact was at the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how it was received.
But I know how it's credited nowadays, yeah.
But I will say that the legacy is probably stronger than the impact. Because it is a grandfather of horror, but that doesn't mean horror wouldn't be around if it wasn't here.
Exactly. So I think Impact would be 6 and Legacy would be 8 for me.
I'm going to say Legacy would definitely be 8 or 9. I mean, like, but then again, I've ran into more people who don't know what Nosferatu is than I have that people who actually know Nosferatu.
Yeah. So this gets hard because for like us, the legacy's up there, but for like
if you're again
casual viewer,
if you
don't know it,
horror person, then you're gonna at least know of Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't seen it, you'll know who, and you would be like, oh, I know Nosferatu. That's obviously that's a granddaddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a bunch of people who know it. Not a lot have probably seen it.
But just know of its...
Yeah.
So, Same year score. 8, I'd say 8 Legacy and 6 Impact.
Okay, so 6, 8, and 4.5. On to the next one.
I'll go ahead and be the one that throws out the obvious one that's going to be on here. But if we're going to be sticking to my one director per,
okay,
it's not my favorite of his, but it is. But I think it is more impactful. I'm going to put up the Halloween.
All right, the one from John Carpenter.
Because The Thing, to me, is John Carpenter's best horror movie and my favorite horror movie. But I would have to say that if we're talking
Halloween's more important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had both those movies on the list,
and
I definitely feel like I lean towards Halloween before The Thing.
In terms of like, there are certain scenes like the blood scene that I've seen parodied that you would only know it if you're like into horror and you like The Thing.
Yeah,
but everybody knows who Michael Myers is.
Yeah, because Halloween kind of
he is in the horror community or just the pop culture zeitgeist.
Yeah, he's escaped horror completely.
Michael Myers is a brand.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the 1978, is it?
Yeah.
1978.
No, we're going to talk about Halloween Resurrection.
Halloween H2O.
Yeah, no.
I was trying to make sure
I
was just making sure I got my date right.
Okay.
1978. So Impact, it
had a big impact on slasher movies.
Spawned how many, not how many. It's to the point where slashers get compared to that as a guideline or as a guidebook as to how to make a good slasher.
Yeah, I think the impact that it had on the horror history is really hard to compete with, because when you ask anybody to think of one horror movie, a lot of them will think of Halloween first, because it's the slasher that kind of jettisons slasher movies, but it's also named after the holiday that celebrates horror as well. So you can't talk horror without talking Halloween. So I think impact, I'd have to go maybe 9.5.
I'm going to say the impact for me was 8, but the legacy is a 10.
You know what? That does make a lot of sense. So I'd still stick impact at like 9. So okay, so
I think Halloween is if not one of the most recognizable franchise for just in horror in general. When you say horror movie, like when I say horror movie, what comes to mind? When you think the top 3, Freddy, Jason, Michael.
Yeah. And everything about that movie is kind of legendary, like Michael Myers. Almost everyone knows who he is. Everybody knows Laurie Strode.
Is this it has to be up there with probably a horror franchise that has probably had the most sequels and sequels, reboot and requel, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has to be up there.
Yeah. And the score itself is legendary too. If you just play that score in a room full of people, I'd say probably about 90% of people are going to know what it's from.
Yeah, same with Jaws, which when we were talking like Jaws is probably like a better movie. It has a budget, but I'd still say that the legacy, but people still know those two came out in the same decade.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'd rather watch Halloween over Jaws if I had a choice of watching either one of those two movies right now.
Well, I'd have to rewatch. It's been a little bit since I've seen Jaws. I probably watched Halloween not too long ago when we were doing close to Halloween.
I feel like I watch it at least once a year, so yeah.
Yeah, I definitely watched it at Halloween time, so I'm sure that people know Halloween more than Jaws.
Yeah. So I think quality of the movie, it's a quality movie.
It's a quality movie
that you could still watch to this day, even though it was made in 78.
So, what are you giving it?
I'd probably give it a 9.
Only because, since I'm thinking about the same director and you asked me would I go out of my way, I'd go out of my way more to watch The Thing. To me, watching it every Halloween is more tradition than anything.
Yeah.
More. It's like Halloween comes around. It's like, oh well, it's about that time to kind of pop on Halloween. It's either the quality is between a 7 and an 8 for me. 7.5.
7.5.
Which is still high. If we're grading it by our knowing of slashers, like now, it would be what today we would consider as just a regular old slasher.
So 9, you went 7.5, so that'd be 8.25 for quality. All right, so 8.5, 10, 8.25.
Yeah, because there's no denying that 10, people know Michael Myers.
Yeah, Legacy of Halloween is probably the best legacy of any horror movie.
All right, your turn next, right?
All right, I'm gonna throw one out there
Okay.
that I don't think you're gonna expect, but I'm gonna go with Get Out.
Okay. No, I mean that's worth talking about.
Yeah,
It is in a lot of people's. All right, let's
I think that's honestly like the most recent movie I have on my list.
Impact. Everybody was talking about this movie when it came out.
Yeah,
Then all the discussion sparked off onto race discussions, as well as Jordan Peele being a legitimate director, and
yeah,
to the point where even now he is judged based on that movie.
yeah. And I think it kind of, well, I mean, there's elevated horror before it, but it was
Mhm.
like the first movie I think that kind of perfected the notion of like an elevated horror movie for me.
And people go back and watch it like again to like pick up on little subtleties that
Yeah,
they didn't know about before. So Impact, but it's also kind of recent. I mean, how old is that movie now?
I think what came out in 2018,
Okay, so
so 5 years.
5 years, because he's still riding that. Because the Impact, as of right
Yeah.
now, I'm gonna say that Impact is is probably at an 8.5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. 8.5 for the Impact.
Because he's
Maybe.
still kind of riding high off of it 5 years later.
Yeah, and it being recent, Legacy is still kind of
Legacy is kind of hard because
Yeah.
it's still 5 years isn't really
Yeah.
that big of a time thing to kind of judge anything by. But I mean,
yeah,
I just said that it
because
was impactful, so
yeah, and who knows? Like 10 years from now, no one could be thinking about this movie, or people would still be raving about it. But as of right, I'm probably gonna go with a 6 on Legacy.
I'm gonna say 8.
Okay.
Given like again, he is being judged on his future projects based on
Based
Get
on-
Out. That might have been to his detriment having such a
Yeah.
strong opening like that, because
Yeah.
now that's what everybody holds him up to. If that was like his third movie,
Yeah.
then everybody that would have been like he would have had a chance to make a flop or an average movie without people like judging him for it.
Yeah, because if he makes a complete flop now, it's gonna be a rough time for him. So quality of the movie, obviously, this is a really good quality movie.
Very layered.
Yes.
So quality, good directing, and I've heard him talk about his scenes that he like angled certain things in a certain way, and he
Yeah.
timed it to do this in a certain way. So the actual quality of the movie itself is good. Going out of my way to watch it, only because I haven't seen it in a little bit. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah.
I'd go out of the way to watch it like today. So I'm gonna I'll give it another solid 8.5.
Yeah. I'm gonna go just 8. It's not bad.
No.
It's gonna be up there in the list.
This one also runs the risk of getting probably booted off the list.
Okay.
But I just wanted to get thoughts on no, never mind. That's more sci-fi than anything. I was gonna say Terminator 2,
Oh yeah, that is. Yeah, I would think of that in horror.
but Terminator 1 would have been more horror. Oh, never mind. This I want to throw out a personal favorite because it's beloved by the horror community. I was gonna say Tremors. Oh, okay, I got one.
All right.
Reanimator.
I don't think I've never seen that movie.
All right. Well, that one was kind of iffy anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so we did John Carpenter. We did the Blair Witch. Going over it in my mind. How about kind of a no-brainer? We got to go with The Shining.
Wow, I didn't even think of that one.
Beloved by everyone except Stephen King.
Yeah.
Impact. Now I don't know how strong of an impact it had when it came out.
Yeah.
I don't know how the reception was. All I know is that it is considered by everyone now a lot of people call a flawless masterpiece, or definitely
Yeah.
a lot of people's favorite Kubrick movie.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know what the impact it left is
Yeah.
pretty damn high.
Yeah. Same.
But again, I think the legacy probably supersedes it.
I think the legacy's actually been tarnished.
Why, with Doctor Sleep or something?
No, just hearing about the treatment of people on set and things like that.
Oh, like Shelley Duvall and
Yeah.
I don't know. I hear more. I hear more people like who love it and are indifferent to Shelley. Whenever I
Yeah.
hear people talk about it, people are like, "Oh, The Shining's great," but then people will say, "Oh, yeah, it sucks what happened with Shelley Duvall."
Yeah.
But people will still say that movie is awesome. But yes, I guess I don't know how recently it came out about how poorly she was treated on set, and just the working conditions.
Yeah.
And having to take like over 140 something takes. Impact, I don't know. I guess I'm gonna say Legacy could have been a 10, but now is an 8. I'll say the quality for me of the movie is a 9. I would go out of my way to watch it.
Oh, definitely. So I'm with you. Quality 9.
And Impact, I don't know. I just know the impact that it left, so I'm just gonna give it a 7.
See, for me, Impact I think would be 8, and Legacy for me would probably be an 8 as well. So The Shining would get 7.5, 8, and 9. Pretty
Not
good.
bad.
I think it is time to get some Hitchcock on the list with Psycho.
Go ahead and get that going.
Right, so I think Impact is kind of credited as the first slasher movie, and also a movie that took risks way before movies would do that, like killing off a main character halfway through. And alone that shower scene is something people still talk about to this day. So that's kind of why I think it is an important movie to horror.
Going back to my vocational school days, my film teacher was a Hitchcock fanatic.
See, I don't
You
know
know,
if
you
it'll
hear all
make
this.
the list, but I think it's a movie we should at least talk about.
You hear the stories of when that came out, and like it was a lot of like people freaking out,
Yeah.
like in the theaters, and genuine people like running out of the theaters, and you hear those stories. And even I think it's like the first movie to ever show a flushing toilet on screen.
I did not know that. That's a random fact.
Wasn't because she like was trying to flush something down the toilet while she was in it.
Yeah.
Apparently that was the first, because anything like toilet like was considered kind of like vulgar or whatever like that. So
Yeah.
this was like the first toilet on
Yeah.
screen or something like that. Yeah, it is a weird. Yeah, I told you my teacher was a fanatic.
Yeah.
So Impact, I mean, he is called the master of suspense,
Yeah.
and this helped earn him his title. Man, Legacy is probably about up there with either a 9 or a 10. People know Psycho. I'm gonna say 9.5 for Legacy.
I would say 9 for Legacy yet.
Also because of stories about how he treated women on his, well, Tippy more than anyone, but that was,
I haven't heard any of those stories. I just
oh yeah,
Legacy's high,
he look up him and like all the stuff with him and Tippy from Birds, like just
I'm gonna change Legacy.
yeah. So there's like 2 movies made about it. Like, so quality.
Quality, I'd probably go maybe like I want to go 5, but I don't want to sit there and say it's a bad movie. I don't think I will go out of my way to watch Psycho.
Psycho. I'd say Psycho is probably. I'm not a big Hitchcock guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a good amount of his movies, but I'd say Psycho is probably, of the ones that I've seen, would be the one that I would go out of my way to watch,
Okay.
like of his works. But I would probably put it at a 6.5 because I would probably watch it more as an analytical piece.
And what did you say for Impact again?
Impact, I'm gonna say 8. Just, I mean, I wasn't there, obviously. I just hear about of how much it was, but and everybody gives their due respect to Psycho. So I think 8.
Yeah, I agree with you on 8. So 8, 9.25, and 5.75.
Oh, me, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to put one on there, but I haven't seen it. All right, I'll probably let you lead with it because I'll defer to you with some stuff. But I feel like it needs to at least be put on the list as The Exorcist.
Wait, you haven't seen The Exorcist?
No, I've seen The Omen, but I haven't seen The Exorcist. Come at me now.
Oh man, I mean,
I'm sorry. Have you seen Vampires from Mars?
Yeah, I have.
I watch a lot of movies. I can't watch all of them. I watch Shudder stuff. All of my stuff is obscure stuff from like 1972.
I think The Exorcist is on Shudder.
Well, then I'll go buy it since I'll be on there once again.
But, I mean,
Shudder, $5.99 a month.
Quality of the movie, I think, isn't great. I think it's a movie you should see at least once. But I don't think I'd go out of my way to rewatch it.
Now I'm sure you've seen The Omen, right?
Yeah.
Which would you prefer to watch?
Probably The Exorcist.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of gauge your scale.
Like, I also had to kind of go back to like my first time viewing the movies and try to feel like which one I felt was scarier to me. I'd definitely go with The Exorcist. Yeah, so for quality for this one, I'd probably do a 6.
Okay, I'll defer to you with that. So for that at least, that's the one I will defer to you for, just because I've never seen it. But we can definitely talk impact and legacy.
Yeah, I mean, it had a big impact on the horror community, or just the community itself when it first came out, because so many people were scared of this movie when it came out.
I mean, it still scares people today.
Yeah, I think the Catholic Church tried to ban this movie.
And not only does it have a lasting legacy, but the curse around the movie also had a legacy.
Yeah.
So the legacy of the movie itself and the making of the movie has a legacy.
Yeah, so I think I'd have to go probably for impact and legacy. Probably go 8.5 for each.
Legacy, I'll do impact 8.5, legacy 9.
So 8.5, 8.756 for The Exorcist. And I'm finally gonna throw it out there because I don't know. I'm gonna go with my top two favorite movies of all time, both made by the same director.
Yeah, that's why I was leaving it to you because I knew that this one was coming up.
Yeah, I feel like Scream might be just a little bit more important than Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, I would agree with that. Freddy's more iconic, but
Yeah.
he has iconic staying power. Because I think even now, like I think if you were to ask some kids would probably recognize Freddy before they would recognize Ghostface or where
Yeah.
Ghostface is from.
Yeah. But I feel like the movies and like what's actually in the movies, I think Scream edges out Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, I mean, the impact it had, I mean, slasher films were dying up until Scream came out in the 90s. Like, if you go back and look at some of the movies that came out that were slasher films,
Mm-hmm.
they were not very good. Even the Nightmare on Elm Streets that were coming out outside of New Nightmare were bad movies. And then this one started what we talk about a lot on the podcast is that 99, well, late 90s, early 2000s type of movie that we saw a lot in horror.
Yeah.
That I know it did Last Summer's, Urban Legend, just off the top of my head. So I think it did have a decent impact. I would say impact, I'd probably go a 7 on it.
Impact. I mean, they're still making movies now.
Yeah.
They have don't they have like 2 slated now?
Yeah.
Like, so we're gonna have, is it gonna be up to like Scream 8?
Scream 6 is coming out next month. It'll be Scream 7.
It obviously, but then again, there was a long gap between.
So between 3 and 4, there was 10 years, and between 4 and 5 was another 10 years, which I think is good pacing for a franchise.
But I think as of now, it's starting to kind of be like, oh, we can definitely make money off of this. Let's get a bunch of them out.
Plus, it had 3 seasons of a TV series, and a 4th one's coming, I believe.
Scream Legacy is strong, though.
I think the legacy is stronger than the impact for Scream.
Yes, I was gonna say, but I feel like the legacy is probably also gonna diminish if they're gonna keep pumping them out like they're pumping them out. Like,
yeah, because the one thing Scream says is it's never had a bad movie in its franchise.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but we're talking about the original Scream here, so I mean, it's now looked at as the movie, like the big meta movie.
Yeah, and a lot of people will do the voice. What's your favorite scary movie?
What's your favorite scary movie? Who was the bad guy in Friday the 13th?
It's Jason! I've seen that movie 1,000 goddamn times!
Then you would know that it's his mother who was the murderer in the...
That opening scene's iconic in itself.
Impact I'm gonna give, because again, that's one of those where I heard stories about how people...
they marketed Drew Barrymore as a star and then killed her in the first 5 minutes.
She was right on the front cover.
Yeah.
It's have to be a 9 for me.
See, I think Legacy for me would be a 9.
That was mine. Oh, or did I say Impact?
You said Impact. Yeah.
Oh, they're both 9s actually for me.
Okay. Quality of the movie.
It's never ever been my franchise, really. I can appreciate it, but it's never been my thing to go to.
See, for me, I could watch that movie almost every day.
Last time I watched all 3 of them was when we had Ryan Showers on, and we were going to go over them. And until that point, I had not seen the second or third one. I had only seen the first. And I haven't seen either of them since.
See, I could watch the first one over and over again.
See, this one is where it's like personal preference.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying it's a bad movie, nor is the quality bad, but it was just I just sometimes you just don't click with certain franchises, I guess. But nothing wrong with it, but I'll give it a 7 for me.
7. I'm gonna go 9.5, so now it is up to you.
Oh yeah. Yours was Scream, was it?
Yeah.
We're talking about the heavy hitters here. If I'm gonna have to throw in Freddy might not have made the list, but I think Jason definitely deserves a spot.
All
But
right.
I'm going to say, but I'm trying to debate if it should be the first or second one because the first one didn't have Jason until the end. Yeah, we'll go with the original. If we should do the base ones of all, yeah,
Yeah.
Friday the 13th.
So the impact, I mean, it kind of was the forefront of
We wouldn't
the
have
the campfire
Madman
slash
or Cropsy or
or the burn. Yeah.
yeah.
Which I mean, campy slashers, they are what they are. They're not great, but they're never really
they're
that
entertaining.
bad. Yeah, they're never. Yeah, something you could just put on and watch.
Popcorn
yeah,
flicks.
Exactly.
Just shut your brain off and eat some popcorn and
Watch people die. And I mean, it did launch Kevin Bacon's career, so that's something to look at too.
and one of the big twist endings like in horror movies.
Yeah,
well, two twist endings. You have the reveal of it being Jason's mother, and then the fact that Jason pops out of the water.
Yeah, because I mean, the first time I watched the movie, I already knew how it ended because it's talked about so much. So I think if I went in not knowing how it ended, I don't know if I would have been like, oh, that cook's Jason's mother. She's killing people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think did have a decent impact on the horror scene and when it came out. So I think impact is probably about a 7 for me.
Impact. I mean, it spawned off like how many like haunted camp movies were spawned because of this. And this was before even Jason, the killer, hits the scene.
Yeah.
But without the first one, you wouldn't have the rest of them.
Yeah.
So impact, I'm gonna give it to. I'm gonna say 8.25. Legacy. I mean, he's up there with the big boys, so I'm gonna have to say Legacy as of right now is a 9. I mean, and
yeah, he has a great legacy.
And it's one of those where even the bad movies are still entertaining, like as just a turn your mind off slasher.
Yeah. I mean, the movies aren't great, but they're not bad.
And even some of the worst ones, like Jason Takes Manhattan, people will watch and make fun of and have fun doing so.
And it still has the iconic too, the dude getting his head punched off.
Yeah. So strong legacy and quality. I'm gonna say a solid. See, remember how I said some franchises don't click with me, but that like Scream. I like sometimes a good, nice, campy little slasher. So I'm gonna give that one a nice 8.
I'd probably give it a 6 because there's no movie where I'm like that was an amazing movie in this franchise, but there's also.
I mean, I will say that like Scream objectively is probably a better movie than Friday the 13th, but if we're putting in personal taste, I can get entertained by a nice little campy slasher.
So right in the middle of 7, so for that. All right, so I have 2 more and you have 1 more. I'm just gonna throw this one out here. Saw.
So I guess I probably know a little bit more about it than you do. Have you seen all of them?
Yeah.
You know more about it than I do. I stopped at
I think the last one was the Book of Jigsaw or whatever with Chris Rock.
Didn't see that one. The last one I saw was when Hoffman killed Jigsaw's wife.
I mean, after Jigsaw dies, I mean they're go to hell anyway. So
but the original Saw.
Yeah, I kind of.
I really liked the first one.
Yeah, and the impact it had kind of created the whole torture porn scene.
A lot of people, it did get compared to, like, whenever something is gratuitously violent, people say, what is this, Saw?
Yeah.
Like,
even though I wouldn't consider torture porn, I think it was a precursor for it.
No, it had a plot, and it had a genuine intrigue. Like, I wanted to know who the Jigsaw killer was. I wanted to know who. Yeah. I mean, it was like the
story was great.
It felt like like I was in the world of Seven. Like it could have taken place in the same universe as the movie Seven.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't. I mean, some people would probably say that Seven's torture porn in some fashion, but
the story of Seven's so great though.
Yeah, so I think the story holds up.
Yeah. So impact, I'd say, is pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, they're still making. Well, the last one was Book of Saw. I don't know if they're still going to make any more, but
I mean, I think the later movies hurt the legacy more than add. But
yeah, everything after the third one.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a couple of them, but I could notice the dip in quality.
Yeah, if this movie took the Scream approach where they made 3 and then took 10 years off to make another one. Probably would have been the right approach with Saw.
But I can't say it's more impactful than something like Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Or any of or it didn't really. Well, I mean, it didn't spawn as many. I think that Jason and and Michael Myers probably spawned way more like copycat type things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to give it a 7 on the Legacy.
That's what I was thinking too. 7 Legacy, and probably
For me, the quality is an 8 because I really
yeah.
it's probably one of the more like I would go out of my way to watch it. It was my horror franchise for a hot minute.
I agree. The quality of the first movie for the budget they had is great. Still holds up today. I could still go back and watch it.
And then the reveal at the end, and still get goosebumps when that music score hits at the end. Yeah.
I'd probably say Impact is also a 7.
And what did I say? I said Legacy was a. What did I say? Legacy
7.
7.
I kind of went 7, 7, 8 for the yeah.
And I said 8 for Legacy.
No, you said 8 for quality.
8
7
for quality.
For Legacy, yeah.
7 for Legacy and Impact. I mean, it did. I'll say Impact is a 7 as well.
All right, 7.
So 7, 7, 8.
Yeah, it's a pretty good score. All right, so your last movie, Chris.
So if I'm thinking, I'm trying to think of a genre that we might not have tapped into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have some that are like Frankenstein's monster, where it's like, oh, the Legacy is like this quality. I don't know. I haven't seen it. That's the thing with the show is that like I can't watch all. I've seen Nosferatu, but I haven't watched Frankenstein. So
I've seen Frankenstein, and quality's not great.
Yeah, it made your Dave hates good movies.
Yeah.
For shits and giggles, I was gonna throw out Terrifier just because it seems like he's starting to gain like a franchise with that.
Maybe if they come up with like a couple more movies, or it becomes a little bit more mainstream in the next couple of years, I'd say so.
It got more mainstream between Terrifier 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And people went and saw Terrifier 2, and then people were like saying, I mean, I've seen 1 or 2 little clips. I'm like, geez.
I haven't seen Terrifier 2 yet.
It's on my list.
Same here. Like, I have to watch it.
But I'm not going to throw him in the list just because I foresee that he could have the makings of a big franchise in the future.
Yeah.
As like the big horror icon. Also trying to make sure I'm sticking to my rule that I set. And trying to put my biases aside. There's some movies that I'm like, I know wouldn't make a top 10 list, but it would be interesting to talk about. Oh, okay. Well, no. Oh, dang. We already did Night of the Living Dead, didn't we?
Yeah.
Damn, this is tough, man. We're talking about like our best. Like I usually like on a daily basis go through and make top 10s in my head, and it's hard when you're down to your last 1 or 2. I was like, all right, what deserves to be on the list?
Yeah, I have 4 that could be on the list for me, and I'm not sure which one.
All right, why not? Hellraiser.
Hellraiser. Okay. It is making a comeback.
It is making a comeback. It did stir up some stuff even with the new Pinhead. Although not as much as I thought. I thought people were gonna like lose their mind, but I've only heard like a couple of isolated people who had a problem with it.
I mean, the new movie was probably one of the best in the franchise.
I've heard mixed. I've heard people who said it was disappointing. I've heard other people say it's a good introduction to a new kind of Pinhead.
Yeah, because I think this one, the new one, actually makes the Cenobites the main threat. Because they're always like lingering in the background. It's like almost the first time in the franchise that's the case. But Hellraiser itself, I mean,
I'd say it still has a pretty decent legacy. I wouldn't say fantastic, but it has a decent one. People love Pinhead, and people. I liked seeing in the.
See, the thing is, though, I think more people know, or they've seen pictures of Pinhead, know Pinhead, but they don't know the movie.
They just know, oh, that's Pinhead.
Yeah, and wouldn't be able to place the movie he's from, or I think the movie was called something like Pinhead or something like that.
That's fair. You would see the cover art of Hellraiser, and you would just think it's a generic. I don't know. If you saw a guy with pins in his head, you'd probably think it's like either a generic monster movie or a generic torture porn or something.
Yeah.
I wanted to put Hellraiser on the list just because I'm having a hard time thinking of it, but it does have a following.
It does.
I'll say the legacy is at least a 7.5.
I'd probably go 7 legacies.
Impact. I don't know if it necessarily had a huge impact, other than people wanting to, other than people following it and liking it.
It's one of the I don't know if it's like the first cult follow movie, but it's in the early echelon of cult classic movies.
So for that, I'm going to say 6.5.
Yeah, I'll match it 6.5. Quality,
I like it.
I like it, yeah.
That's one that I would go out of my way to watch.
The original, absolutely, and the remake that just came out, I would watch again.
Even the second one, like all of them, you can find a little bit of entertainment in. I would think. I mean, some are better than others, obviously, but
yeah,
and they did replace Pinhead once already. Before the second time they
outside of the original or the remake, I don't think I'd go out of my way to watch any of the other one.
Yeah, but the first one, and I'd say even some of the second ones still kind of stands out.
I think quality, I'd probably go 7.
I'll go 7.5.
Right.
I'd go out of my way to watch it.
All right, 6.5, 7.25, 7.25. And the last movie we're going to talk about today, 3 movies, I'm not sure which one to go with.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Alien.
Out of curiosity, what were the other two?
Poltergeist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, Alien deserved that spot more.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one that's, it's again up there with the big boys.
Yeah.
Of recognizable franchise. Now, I mean,
but I think once it gets up there with the big boys, it kind of shrinks down below just a shred.
Yes. I think that more people, like, if you were to like show a picture of the Xenomorph to a lot, I'm sure there'd be like to a casual viewer, you'd be like, "What is this?" They'd be like, "Oh, Alien." Well, what's the alien called?
I don't know.
It's a Xenomorph.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be, below. It's
the impact when it came out. I think just impact alone from the chest burster scene, because I don't think there's been a scene like that before happening that people have seen. So that's why impact. I think I'd have to go 8, and legacy probably 7, and then probably quality probably be a 7 as well.
I'm gonna say quality. It is a little bit slow in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in space. I'm not really big on space movies.
No, there's not a lot I could pinpoint that I'm like, that was good.
Like in terms of a space movie?
Yeah.
Well, there's one. There's a movie called Moon that I think is pretty good.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
It has Sam Rockwell in it. I think it's pretty good.
I have to be Armageddon.
I have to be in a slow pace, I have to be in the right mood for a space movie.
Yeah.
But I'm always in the mood for Galaxy Quest. But in terms of horror, I'm never really big on space. Yeah. But this one is good. I'd probably say a 7.5 for quality.
All right.
Because that's I'd watch it. I wouldn't. I'm gonna say 8 for the legacy.
Okay.
And for the quality, for the impact.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up there. I think 8 is fair.
All right. So 8.
That is a little less, if not the same amount as Nightmare of Friday the 13th.
All right, those are our movies.
Do you have a tally?
I have the scores written down, about to just add them up real quick.
You didn't tell me there'd be math involved.
Well, math for me, not for you. Number 10 is Alien with a score of 22.75. And then 9th place, tied 8th, is Psycho and Night of the Living Dead with a score of 23. And then coming in 7th is The Exorcist at 23.25. And then following that, with a score of 23.75, is Friday the 13th. And then with a score of 24.5 is tied. Oh, no, I missed it out. It's also tied with Friday the 13th at 23.75. And then The Shining and Jaws are tied at 24.5. And the movie that came in second is Scream with 25.75. And the movie that blew everything out of the water, the most important horror movie, Halloween, with 26.75.
I think that's pretty solid. I actually wouldn't mind trying to tweak that scale for our movie reviews.
Yeah.
Have 3, based on 3 things: story, technicals, and overall enjoyment.
Yeah. And everyone, that is our top 10 important horror movies. I'd want to maybe try it again, but with a different topic. Maybe like top 10 most important actresses of horror or directors, or something like that.
I'll have one.
Yeah.
Most important performance.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We should do that one next. Yeah.
Top 10 most important performances in horror.
I like that. Yeah.
Or not important. Well, not important, but iconic or
top 10 iconic performances in horror.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Iconic, impactful.
Yeah.
We're working the bugs out on this one. It's a new one, but I like it. I'm willing to do a longer episode and then.
Yeah. I had a fun doing this one.
Yeah,
But once again,
yeah.
thank you guys all for listening. Keep up with us on Twitter and Instagram for updates and new things coming out. Everybody have a good week.
See you, everyone.
Peace.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to Body Bag Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment as to what you'd like to hear us review or any horror movie topics you'd like to hear us rant and rave about.
And while you're at it, you can find us on Twitter at BodyBagPod and on Instagram at BodyBagPodcast.
Thanks, and we'll see you next time.